Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026 at 3:04 in the afternoon. So for our last 25 minutes or so, we had Nora Collins with us from VHFA. Talked a little bit about the payment program that it has, and some thoughts that she had. Nora, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Do always have thoughts. Thank you very much for having me again. Yes, Maura Collins with Vermont Housing Finance Agency. I'm here to give a program update. This is a program, I call it a DPA program, down payment assistance. Technically, if you go to our website, you'd call it the ASSIST program because our marketing people don't want to call things acronyms. I don't know, but it assists home buyers to buy their first home. This has been supported for the last 11 years through the sale of state tax credits. And way back when, in 2014, it was actually born in this committee. It was the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce. It was an economic development program where employers were clamoring for ways to have their employees be able to buy a home so that they could feel more rooted and stable and stay in their jobs longer. And through a series of conversations, I'm going to tell you how the program came to be. I'm going to tell you what's been happening for the last several years with it. I'm going to tell you that this year is the last year that we were able to sell tax credits just to support the program. And that's fine. That's by design. Because what we were doing is for the last 11 years, we were capitalizing a revolving loan fund. But I'm also going to tell you about the way the housing market is right now and why that's not performing the way we designed. And so I am asking for the ability to be able to sell these credits for 5 more years to grow that revolving loan fund a little bigger than we had originally modeled and why we need that. And I'm hoping to do that today, even though you don't see that in legislation in front of you right now, because I've been in this building a few times and I have a feeling you're going to see this in the miscellaneous tax bill. I also think you may see it in a Senate housing bill. And in a few weeks, when these bills cross your desk, I'm probably going to be out of the office for a little bit. And so I was hoping that I could come talk about it now so that when you have questions, you can ask my staff, but you've gotten the glossy sales pitch from me now. So that's what we're doing. Back in 1987, the federal government came up with federal tax credits. Brilliant idea, largest creator of affordable rental housing in the nation. It's the 5th largest tax credit program that our country has. It's created millions of homes affordable across the country. And in 2000, the state of Vermont said, hey, that's a pretty good looking program. Why don't we do the same thing and have state tax credits fund something similar and create affordable rental housing? And that was well ahead of your time because it's now 25, 26 years later. And other states are saying, we should create a state tax credit program modeled after the federal one. This is a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, we did that 25 years ago. But it's the hot new topic at conferences that I go to. And I tell them how we did that a long time ago. So in 2000, we started selling these tax credits to create rental housing. And then in 2009, the state said, home ownership's important too. Let's create for sale homes, stick-built homes that could be sold and sell these tax credits as a way of helping fund and lower the cost on these for sale homes. Then we know the tropical storm Irene came through and a lot of our manufactured home communities, our mobile home parks got devastated. And so we expanded the program again and allowed manufactured homes to be able to be purchased when they were inefficient or in a floodway or something like that. And new ones up to code, more energy efficient, now can be bought and you can get a big $35,000 down payment to help support that part of our market. You sometimes hear the Champlain Housing Trust come in and talk about that manufactured home replacement program. So these are all part of the state tax credit program. But in 2014, that's when this committee started hearing from employers, the state tax credit program was expanded again to fund us in funding down payment assistance. So the money you see here is about developing housing. What I'm talking about is not building homes, but it's financing them and making them more affordable. And how it works is that a home buyer who's a first-time home buyer, so they're renting, they go into a participating lender one of the community banks, credit unions, mortgage companies, and they say, here's my income, here's the kind of house I want to buy, here's my situation. And the lender would say, you know, you qualify for VHFA. Let me show you what their rates are. They're probably a little cheaper. And with them, you could get some down payment assistance, and that may be the best deal for you. And so they get a VHFA loan. And if they're a first-time home buyer and they don't have enough down payment to close on their loan, they can get up to $10,000 from us. That is a 0%, what I would call a silent second loan. They make no payments on it. No interest is charged, no fees. And that $10,000 sits there so that they have $10,000 less of a mortgage, meaning their mortgage payments a little cheaper. It just sits there silently. And then someday when they go to refinance the loan because their home prices have gone up or interest rates have gone down or whatever their situation is, we don't do refinancing at VHFA. So if they want to refinance their loan, they pay us back that 10 grand. Or if they move or if they die or something happens, you know, we get paid back. So yes, we're handing out $10,000 at a pop, but yes, we get it back. That's why it's a revolving loan fund. And so you can combine this with other programs that we have. The First Gen program, where not only are you a first-time home buyer, but your parents didn't own a home. We'll give a grant for that. That's a different program, but you can layer them together and really have your down payment be more robust. You can see the map that we've covered the state pretty well, helping over 2,100 home buyers in the last 11 years. This just says that this is efficient and wonderful. I'll tell you, since this is limited to VHFA loans, and since by design we embedded it into the home buying process, it means you're not applying to us. It's not a prioritization of who's most vulnerable or needy. There's not an open window of application and then we close it and all that. It's embedded into the home buying process structurally, which makes it very efficient to run, which means the state of Vermont is getting the benefit of this program for $0 admin dollars, okay? Because honestly, we're making a little money off that mortgage. We don't need to make more off of this resource. The only thing that comes out of it is a $6 per page recording fee that we have to record these loans so that people know. So why would we create a program like this? Why is homeownership important? Well, we do know that there's a wealth gap between renters and owners. If you exclude, these are national numbers, but if you exclude the value of someone's home, homeowners still have a median net worth $400,000 compared to what renters have of $10,000. Half of renters own appreciating assets. They have that kind of, I'm blanking on the term. Things that make money that you don't have to work at. I'm blanking. Anyway, moving on. Passive income, thank you. Thank you. You know, like stocks, bonds, you know, things that are working for you when you're not laboring. Less than half of renters have those kind of appreciating assets, whereas 78% of homeowners have that, even when you take their home out of the equation. So we want to be able to reduce that wealth gap in some ways and have people be able to become homeowners. Because when you do look at the home's value, you can see here that home equity is going up and up and up. And so when you can become a homeowner and tap into the ability of a home appreciating, you have that ability to be here laboring like I am right now, while my home, I think, is appreciating in Essex Junction while I'm here. And it's important to help people get into home ownership. The realtors showed that this year, if you look at the bottom orange line, this is the median age of when people are buying homes. And the bottom orange line shows the median age of first-time home buyers. And it hit 40 years old this year for the first time. It popped out of the 30s. And you can see that just 10 years ago, when we created this program, it was down around 31 years. Now, I am not that old, but I was raised by parents who had some pretty standard old-timey financial advice for me. And it was, you know, to own is good, to rent, you know, you're paying someone else's bills. And they had a lot of somewhat outdated models, you know, especially if someone wants to move for economic mobility. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a homeowner, But there was this idea that some of us are familiar with, even if we're not experiencing it ourselves, that you really kind of want your home paid off by the time you retire. You know, it used to be mortgage burning parties back in the day. I'm really going back. And the idea was you could afford to live on a fixed income and be on Social Security maybe and all that because you didn't have your biggest expense of your home's payment. If someone is becoming a homeowner at 40 and they get a 30-year mortgage, this idea of ever being ahead in this game of housing becomes less and less likely. And so this really does create financial stability. Yep.
So do you have stats before 1981? Because it almost, I mean, it looks like we've gone right over a long period. We've gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years, but it would wondering if it actually even was lower as we go back.
I don't know. We have to ask the realtors. If they only publish back to 81, I'm guessing that's all this goes back to.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't
not
know if there's the
specific.
program, it's tough because we didn't have VHFA, I don't think, I mean.
Well,
of
this
course,
is
at that point, I was in
NAR.
middle school, so.
This is National Association of Realtors who I believe have been serving, you know, their realtors who would report and through probably MLS or something like that. I don't know how they're getting this data, but I don't know.
I can certainly vouch that the data is very true.
So VHFA, these are all VHFA borrowers because I don't know everyone's details about who's buying a house in Vermont, but I know what our borrowers look like. So what you see here is the people who got our down payment assistance or DPA and people who didn't get our DPA, but still got a VHFA mortgage because not everyone gets DPA. And what you can see is that people who are getting this program, they are buying cheaper homes, so they have lower mortgages, they have lower incomes. Their loan to value is higher, meaning that they're putting down less money, and so they have to borrow more of that percentage. Their closing costs are less. I'm guessing that's because their property transfer tax is less because they're buying a cheaper home. Otherwise, a lot of those costs are pretty standardized. Their credit scores are lower. They're a little younger. Household size is just a smidge over bigger. And you can see that actually they have a little less student debt. I'm guessing that's a qualifying outcome, meaning that, you know, we do look at total debt to income and all that. And so maybe some folks can't afford as much. But because this was an economic development program, again, starting in the, a housing program starting in the Commerce Committee was kind of unusual. And so we started asking these applicants, where do you work? Because we were curious about the types of companies that we were serving. And you can see here we have of the 2,100 households, apparently we've collected 1,700 of them, you know, told us about where they worked, and we grouped them into type of industry. And you can see the types of wages that these industries pay. You also can see the top employers that have been served through this program, and it's pretty diverse. And we are tracking this, and we hear good feedback from employers. And I think people have come to expect the existence of this program. Now, to get a VHFA mortgage, people know you do that because you can get down payment with it.
Do you think that that's a product of people knowing about the program?
Why these employers
Yeah,
are
I
the
see
main
the
ones?
State of Vermont is like super high, which I think they're the largest employer
I think
anyway.
that's probably more the correlation. Someone could do a occasional quotient thing of looking at like how big the employer is, and are there some where we're outsized? I mean, I don't usually see Killington Ski Resort on the top 10 list of employers. So that's one where I do think that maybe there's some water cooler talk of, hey, I got this program, I bought a house. And that's the case. But federal government, I think there's probably fewer water cooler conversations like that. And it's probably just a more matter of the size of that employer in the state. So over the course of this program's history, I keep saying we've served over 2,100 households. So this, though, is why I think that this program, on an earlier slide, it says it's a superpower, and it had a little, Wonder Woman figure. I say that because 63% of these loans People who got money from us are still living in those houses with those mortgages. Nothing has changed. So I can promise you that 63% of those 2,100 households are Vermont taxpayers paying property taxes and working in jobs, and I'm assuming eating at restaurants and buying gas and doing all the things that contributing to the state of Vermont, because they still have that mortgage on that primary residence. And for those households, I know what they bought their house for. I don't know what it's worth today, but I know what has happened with appreciation in each town. So we did a little academic exercise of, in this town, if the home sold for this price in this year, what's it worth at the end of 2024? And we did 2024 because bring it to current dollars, whatever, 2024. And we know that for each household, they have $78,000 more in equity because their home value has probably risen $78,000. That's pretty good return on investment, considering we only give people either $5,000 or $10,000, depending on when you got the money. We designed it to be, you got $5,000, now we're giving 10 grand because home prices have gone up. Additionally, another 500 people might still be living in their homes and might still be Vermont taxpayers, but just moved to a different house in Vermont or refinance the home and is still living in that very same home. I just don't know. You know, they paid it back, their loan. So that means they gave us back $3 million that we loaned out to other Vermonters. That's what we want. That's why it's a revolving loan fund. And those people, we know that the median amount that their home appreciated was $50,000. It's a little less probably because they were there a little shorter amount of time, but that's pretty good. So in total, the money of this program, the 11 years we sold these tax credits, has generated over $137 million of wealth. And we're talking about a $14 million program. So for every dollar that the state has invested, there has been $15 of equity that Vermonters are earning. It's a really good bang for the buck when you talk about efficient programs. And the money is not being lost. Okay, it's still out there. It's invested. It's revolving. It's moving. It's happening. It's not being drained of admin fees or anything else. It's in existence. The problem is that people aren't moving the way they used to. There's two problems. One, we designed the program in 2014 and we thought we were going to give people $5,000. Home prices have shot up. We increased with them. We actually didn't keep up with inflation, but we did feel like at some point we had to pop up a little bit. But you can see here again on the left, that's a national chart. This isn't a VHFA number, but you can see that people are not moving the way they used to. If you haven't read Yanni Applebaum's book, Stuck, which talks about, it just about makes every societal ill in America. The problem is that we're all stuck where we live. It's very convincing. And it talks about how from the founding of America, that we were a nation that uniquely allowed people mobility. They did not have to register where they lived in a sense. They had the ability to move and follow the gold west and move to the cities for opportunity and the Industrial Revolution and all these things. And it is a fascinating take on how it's the lack of mobility that is causing the divide in this nation and limiting economic opportunities for people. And so people are moving less. So this chart on the right, my staff loves it. I don't know if it's selling people, but I'll just explain it in case it works for you. The next chart will tell it in a different way. But if you just look at the green bars, you can see the green bars are the first part of the program from 2015 to 2022. And in those years, it was about 6% of the loans we made in that time frame were paying us back the second year they had their mortgage. Why would they do that? I don't know. Maybe they were trying to avoid PMI, private mortgage insurance. Their home price popped up. Maybe they won the lottery. I don't know why. They were able to pay us back. They had to move for a job, something like that.
Rates were low.
But it's more likely that in years, 3, 4, 5, you see that the percentage of people paying us back increased over time. And that's what we would expect. Let's be honest. We all talk about 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I don't know if this stat is exactly true. It's an old number, but I remember that like mortgages stay outstanding for more like an average of 7 years. Is that still about right? Yeah. So, we all love the 30 years, but we refinance or we move or something happens. We get divorced. Things happen. So the orange bar shows just in the last few years what we're seeing, and you don't see that kind of increase over time. You actually see it's just stagnant, like we are not getting those payments. Here's another way of showing the same information. The line shows you what average interest rates are. Okay, so you can see that in 2021, we bottomed out, we've got under 3% on average, and then they shot up to 6% in the last couple of years. And the green bars show you that in the first few years, no one was paying us back because it was a brand new program. They didn't have the money very long and it took them a minute. But then as interest rates dropped, we had more refinancing, which meant we were getting more money. We had over $800,000 paid back to us that year. And this is not a typical government program where we get the money in 2018, we have to spend it by December 31st or something like that. No. This is, like I said, this is the mortgage program. It's a revolving loan fund. So what happened that year? The pool got bigger. We held it. We earned a little interest on it to fund the program. And then we started spending that money over 2023, 24, 25, that excess that we had. And so we knew, here's just showing that we changed the amount that we would give people. And I apologize, I should have fixed this, that what it shows here is that from 2015 to 2018, we were giving people $5,000. And then mid 2018 until 2020, we were giving people $7,500 because again, home prices had risen. Pandemic until last summer, no, I'm sorry. Let me get this right. No, we changed it. It was 2020 to 2023. We gave people $10,000 if you were higher income, and $15,000 if you were lower income. It was in the crunch of that pandemic. Everyone was like, what can you do? Get people into housing, do whatever it takes. So we said, you know what? If you're very low income, we're actually going to give you 15 grand. Then everyone stopped moving. Everyone stopped refinancing. Rates popped up. We're like, we can't afford to give you $15,000 anymore, even if you're low income. We brought everyone back down to $10,000. So that's why you see that most of the loans outstanding are $5,000 loans. So when we get those repayments, it's half of what is going out the door today. So this year in 2026 was the last year we could sell these tax credits. I am asking if we could have the ability to sell them for 5 more years. Also, I've always asked for $250,000 in tax credits, and this year I'm asking for $350,000 because we're giving out more money with going up to $10,000. The confusing part and why this chart behind me makes people's eyes bleed is because it's a 5-year tax credit. So it really gets confusing very quickly, but I think I've got it down and I can explain it. The chart will help, which is this year in 2026, we sold a 5-year tax credit. So that was $250,000, but the bank who buys it, let me tell you who buys it. It's banks usually. Captive insurance companies can buy it, others can, but usually it's banks who have a bank franchise fee that the state requires them to pay each year. And really, it's not a technical term, but I'm going to call that a tax on their deposits. And if I have I'm a bank and I have $1 million in deposits, I don't know how to calculate it, but somehow they have to pay something for that. And if they buy these tax credits, they pay less on that bank franchise fee. You can ask Chris Delia over here all the hard questions about this fee. I don't know enough about it. What I know is that they have to pay this fee. And if they instead invest in affordable housing in these employers, workers, and in helping people become first-time homebuyers, they can pay less. And so that helps the state and we end up with that money. But it's a 5-year tax credit. So they get to write off $250,000 this year, $250,000 next year, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year. So what they're actually giving us is $1.25 million all up front right now because they bought a 5-year tax credit. If it was one bank buying the whole slog, which isn't how it works, but it does today. So they're giving us $1.25 million. They're also going to discount it just a little bit because of the time value of money. I can't write off those taxes for 5 years, and I could have invested that money for the 5 years. So we get roughly right now about like a 90 cents on the dollar for this. So it's a very good tax credit. We make sure that we're selling it for a good amount. So what I'm asking for, as you can see here, if you look just at the blue bar, the blue row down there is what you've already approved many years ago, so you can't touch that, which was that this year, there's 1.25 million that's hitting the state's budget that you guys already approved. And that means this year's first year of tax credits and last year's second year of tax credits and the year before's third year of tax credits. It's weird. You know, back in 2022, there was one more year of tax credits that hit this year's balance sheet of the state because it's a 5-year tax credit. So the blue bar is already done. Thank you very much. We're on the tail end of this program. The green row is the new money that I'm asking for, which is nothing for this current fiscal year we're in. But for next year, we'd sell the first of the tax credits and it would be a $350,000 hit to the budget. And next year, it'd be the 350, the second year of this year's tax credits and the first year of the next year's. So if you add up the numbers in that green row, you're going to see that it's $8.75 million spread over 9 years, meaning this costs the state $972,000 over that time. So it's less than $1 million a year that we're asking for. The Joint Fiscal Office knows all about this. They've seen this chart. I know that they're ready to talk about it. I have testified on this to Ways and Means, and I'll be talking to Senate Finance this week. And I've spoken about this in House General as well as Senate Economic Development and Housing Programs. Of course, I'm going to characterize the reception to this program as overwhelmingly positive, but you are welcome to talk to your friends and family about that if I'm reading the room right. But I will say that this, the legislature has often looked at this program as highly efficient, well-run, helping people out, moving them into homeownership. I know that we're at time, so I'm happy to answer questions.
We're on the floor. Thank you, Maura.
Very well.
We appreciate it. And yes, when it comes up, we'll certainly take a look at it, but I tell you, it's something that I've supported through the years.
Have been vocal about that and I appreciate it.
But we're the only one on the committee now that was there when we first started it.
Yeah. And I want to be very clear that my team is very happy to answer questions if they come up, technical or otherwise, and I'm not going anywhere for a few weeks. So please let me know if there's any follow-up that needs to be done.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Offline.
Thank you.